So, good morning. Thank you for joining the weekly roundtable. Today, we're going to talk about trust, which is a key, I think, for life in general, whether that's personal life, whether that's business life, whether that's career. The ability to build and maintain a trusting relationship is critical. So we're going to talk about the 4 steps, or the 4 steps of the trust formula, which is something that I've come across a good few years ago. So I thought it was worthwhile sharing it with you. The format, for those that, if this is the first time you join, the format is listen to me for 10-15 minutes, sharing some stuff. And then we open it up for questions, discussion, sharing of experiences. And this forms part of the Transformation Leaders Hub, which is a community exclusively for those who operate in change and transformation projects and programs. So we run these on a weekly basis. We also do virtual networking to get people to connect and open up opportunities for each other. As I say, I'll quickly share my screen with and go through the 4 steps of the formula, and then open it up for discussion. And hopefully we'll have a few more people involved in the discussion when we come back. So let me share my screen now. Just this, my mouse broke. I dropped my mouse this morning. And it broke, so I'm using fingers, so I'm a bit slow. So can you see that now? Okay. So yeah, 4-step trust formula. And why is this important? Well, ultimately, it's that old mantra that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And I suppose going back to the premise around TLH, it was more about getting people to know each other, and over the course of these weekly sessions or the virtual networking, you get to like people, and it builds, and over time you ultimately get to trust people, and that's one of the key aspects of the TLH approach. But at the same time, though, the challenge with trust is that it takes a long time to build, but it can be lost in a couple of seconds. So we're going to cover off this formula today, which I think epitomizes the how to build trust and the sort of things that you need to do to avoid losing it, if that makes sense. So what is the formula? Well, let's just go straight into it. C plus R plus I divided by S. So any ideas on what each of those will stand for before we go further? Shall we just go into it? So C, credibility. So how do you build credibility? Given that a key aspect of what we do is to demonstrate our ability to help other people deliver whatever their challenges are or whatever their pain points are, overcome any of the pain points. So to build credibility in the change and transformation market, it's about sharing guides, it's about sharing best practice and being open about sharing them, not guarded. Try to be create value and deliver value as much as possible. And maintain that sort of consistent flow of materials, so that you're not just coming in when you're looking for new projects. You're sort of providing value on a consistent basis. That builds up credibility. And don't hold back. Openly offer support when you can. And sometimes, you get into that situation of saying, well, I'm giving all this free stuff away. When do I get it back? I just carry on. Be open. In my experience, be open. Share information. Give support when you can, because you'll get it back. Might not necessarily be from the person that you're giving the support to at this immediate time. Sometime in the future, they'll come back to you because they remember you've built that credibility. You've started to build that trust, and they'll remember you. And I suppose the key thing is that you want to hear when people are talking about you is that they know the stuff. So at that stage, you know that you've got a tick in the box about that credibility aspect. The second element, excuse me, of the on the trust formula is reliability. So it's one thing being able to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about and you know how to deliver value to a client, but you need to you need to build up this reliability aspect. They need to be able to be confident that you'll show up, that you'll deliver and do what you say you're going to do. The way that lots of people fail on this area is that they overpromise and underdeliver, and almost turn it on its head and underpromise and overdeliver. Starts to build that approach of, yeah, they do what they say they do, and actually they do more than they're going to that they say they do. So show up early and be fully engaged at all times. There's nothing worse, I feel, that when you say you're going to be somewhere that you're not there on time. So silly things, but if you got a meeting in the diary, make sure that you don't have anything in the diary for 15 minutes before, so you can be fully prepared. You can be fully engaged in that next meeting. And I know things happen and stuff happens, but and on a one-off you get away with it. But if you suddenly become people suddenly believe that you never turn up on time, etc., you quickly lose that reliability aspect, and there's a lot, and then it starts to dent that trust element, which we all need as we move forward. So again, the key mantra is that you want to hear back from people is that you always deliver. And the final part on this, on the top part of the equation, where you're building key aspects that build the trust element, is intimacy. And what do I mean by intimacy? Well, it's about being really present and thinking about and understanding the issues that your client or your employer or your family member are focused in. What are their pain points, and be very present and focus upon those pain points. It's interesting. I was on a call the other week with someone, and it was a webinar. Actually, it wasn't a call. It was a webinar, and they were talking in quite negative terms about an experience that they'd had with a previous client. I don't think they meant to do this, but they mentioned the client's name, and it was almost by I'm sure it was a mistake, but they mentioned the client name. And my immediate response is, that's I'm uncomfortable with that. And it would make me really be reticent about using them in the future, because if they had any issues with me, would they then use that story in the future? So always be careful about sharing negative stories about other clients. Always advise with conviction. Again, be present, be focused, be very focused upon the client and the issue that you're facing. And play that devil's advocate. So if an organization's going down a particular path that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, play that devil's advocate and highlight the potential pitfalls for them personally. Because again, people buy from people who they know, like, and trust. And if you can demonstrate that you are in their camp, you're looking after their interest as an individual as well as an organization, they'll feel close to you and they'll feel safe with you. And that's the key thing. So the three aspects of credibility plus reliability plus intimacy are the key, I think, the key strands that can help build that trust. And the fourth aspect of this trust formula is one that can very quickly start to diminish any benefit that you've got above the line. And that's self-orientation. And what do I mean by self-orientation? I think if you are in a situation whereby you're giving lots of value, you're giving, you're building your credibility, you're being reliable, you're turning up, and you're being quite focused upon the on the clients or on the other person's specific needs, but then you immediately go into a sell mode, or you immediately start to look at it from your own personal perspective and what you can get out of this situation, it can start to diminish all of the benefits that you've built up over, within the above the line there. So to avoid that focus upon self-orientation, just keep focusing on the client and their interests and their pain points, and deliver value to them always. And acknowledge that when you're not the right person. I think all too often as an independent consultant, or internally within organizations, if you're employed, and certainly as consultancy, the temptation is always to grab hold of opportunities when they come along, and overpromise to some extent. And it's far better, in my experience, to be really open and be clear about that. I'm not the best person for this. I think you should talk to ABC, whoever it is, and start to refer others into it. So you become known as having the interest of the client, of the interest of the other person uppermost in your mind. As soon as you start to take on stuff that you're not the right person for, you start to diminish that trust element very, very quickly. And again, the key message is they're focused upon my interest. So that's in very rapid sort of 10-15 minutes, if that really, 10 minutes, isn't it, today? That's the trust formula. So credibility plus reliability plus intimacy can be really, really quickly diminished if you are very focused upon yourself. So if you understand how to build credibility, how to build that reliability factor, and how to maintain intimacy, and always be orientated to the other person, you'll naturally start to build build trust. Failure on any one of those things will start to diminish it very, very quickly. Yeah. So that's it. That's what's the world-class basics is what someone described a few weeks ago. So let me stop sharing and come back into the room. And any questions or comments on that?
I think I'll share a story that I shared before, Tony, about where I tried to I did put two people in touch with each other. And the one who I'd approached said, well, if you don't mind me asking, what do you get out of this? And when I said nothing, their whole demeanor changed, and they started thinking about how they could help me. And it was really, really nice, really refreshing. But it's that sort of thing. It does. I now know that they will be, on my side, if you like. And it feels good when you surprise someone like that. It does make you feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. That give us gain, and being seen to be, as you say, being seen to be orientated on them rather than orientated on yourself. It just naturally builds that element of, I probably almost like I owe you something now because you've done me a good deed.
It was almost like that. She was almost trying to really think of something, how she could help me, and I said, no, don't worry. But she did think of something, which was nice. But it's really good feeling.
Yeah. And in terms of those individual elements, is there stuff that you guys have done that you feel you want to share in terms of some good practices, some things that you've been able to do that has helped build your credibility or reliability or intimacy that you'd like to share?
I can just say we've just landed a client that is in the middle of a huge transformation project. Program. They're just getting phase 1 over the line. And we've been brought in to do an assessment of how it's going and what they might need to do for phase 2, because they've got issues around stakeholder engagement, a bunch of different things. And though we're going in and potentially could replace those that are in there, we've positioned it legitimately that we'll go in and just give our honest observations from doing what we need, doing our own due diligence. that may result in recommending they need to make changes, but it could result in just, keep going and you need to support them more type thing. And the CEO of the organization was just thrilled that in the initial presentation, it was focused on what's best for them. It wasn't about us getting more business. So though we anticipate being able to get more, but it would be more from them saying, we want you to come in, not us saying, it's all about us, let us do it. So I think that approach, and we genuinely meant, if they're the right thing, we don't want to step in. We want to help them to be successful. So I do think that it does help you in the long term if you're constantly practicing with that focus on them, not you.
And referrals as well, Kim. That would, if they see that you didn't just try and sell, you said what is best for them, they will refer you on and say, yeah, they're really good, really trust them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I was going to sort of catch up with you, actually, see how things are going, because we've not spoken for quite a while, but great to hear you've gotten. Is that your second client, or have you had a few more since then?
No, second. Yeah. And it's a nice little prestigious one for us too, so it's good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But it's what, as you just said, Kim, it is what you've done by that approach is to build that degree of trust, and every time in every engagement, whether that's a workshop, whether it's a discussion with the chief exec, whether it's working with individuals throughout the organization, every time that you are focused upon them, you're sharing information openly. You're really looking at what it means to them as an individual, as opposed to what it means to you as an organization.
Yeah.
It just builds that you're depositing, you're putting money into the bank into the trust bank.
Yeah.
And although as typically when you're doing any savings, it takes some time to build that up. And all it needs is something to happen. You need to withdraw it very, very quickly. It's exactly the same with that trust bank as well. It takes some time to build up, but soon as you start to braid that, and especially if you start looking at it from your own point of view and what you can get out of it, it just rips the deposits that you've taken very, very quickly into that bank, and you can be in an overdraft position very, very quickly. Any other thoughts or comments on why you feel trust is so important? Lou?
Oh, good.
I will share. I got my first bit of paying business last Friday. It was only a workshop, and it was helping out someone else with one of their clients, but it was last minute. The person that they had lined up for it had to go home to a different country to see their mother who was sick. So I got a phone call from a guy who we met several times. We'd known him from his previous role as a recruiter, and he knew me, trusted me. And we'd had a coffee. We talked about ESG and that side of things, and he was setting up in that area. And he rang me out of the blue and said, you told me I trust you, so can you do it last minute? And I said, absolutely. We had a few preparatory sessions, and I found out after the event that was his first ever workshop. So I was sort of giving him in the prep sessions my experience of workshops I'd run and how we do it, and I don't think you should do that, you should do this, the order of the slides should be and they were really appreciative. And then we got in there, and he and I, the format changed completely because we didn't have as many people in the room. There were many more on Zoom than we would have wanted, but we just dealt with it and made another couple of suggestions. Why don't we do this? And he liked that. So it was, and it's that just stepping in, doing what I was meant to do, helping out, giving my side of the presentation well, and I'm hoping that it'll lead to follow-up work. And it's made me think, well, I don't have to get all my own clients. There will be work coming in from other people where I just step in, because as he pointed out, he doesn't have a big staff, but he wants to grow his practice. So he'll need people like me. And I thought, well, that's another string to the bow. Yeah.
But as you say, I think you mentioned it right at the start that you built that trust within. You got that deposit in the trust bank from way back, and it sort of rewards now. So, well, Lou, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no worries, that's cool. So for me, the R is also, it's reliability, but it's also rapport, because actually you don't build trust unless you kind of really get to know somebody, and that you, I guess, both in personal relationships, but also in business relationships. So you build rapport, which means that you kind of go, yeah, I can work with this person. And then as a result of it, you then deliver reliability and a program of work that then they go, oh, okay, this isn't just somebody who can deliver. It's actually somebody I trust to deliver. And for me, it's the R that's the added factor, which is the rapport bit of the relationship and the people and the style in which you do it. So it's the how that you do it, not necessarily the what, because anyone can do the what, right? But actually, do I trust you? That's more about me as the person, or you as the person. For me, that's the difference between trust and just delivering.
Yeah, agreed. And it comes back to that. Sorry, Neil. It comes back to that. That know, like, and trust, isn't it? And like you say, they might trust you to be able to do it, and they know you, but if they don't like you,
you ain't going to get it again, or you're not going to get referred.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that part of keeping the relationship going, Luke? Because that's one thing you've talked about, Tony, is don't just go out when you want work, but you've got to keep that relationship going. So you meet them for a coffee, and you've got to build up a rapport, as you say, and get on with them to get the like element of the know, like, and trust.
Yeah. And that or could be relationship management. There's lots of different things that come into it, isn't it? Really, but it's if you've got that trust and you've got the relationships in place, and the trust element is just one part of what will result in you being able to. Sorry, someone's just joining there. That the trust element will be just one aspect of one factor in your ability to win business, maintain business, and win for sort of further business. So I think you're absolutely right. It's about maintaining those relationships and maintaining the contact. And at each stage, if you do it with the intention of helping to build that credibility and helping to build that knowledge that you are the person to go to, then absolutely you get ongoing work. Hi, Dawn. You've welcome. We've just gone through the initial phase of this session. We talked about the trust formula, and we're just in a relatively open discussion at the moment about trust and what it means to you as an individual, you as a business person, you as in a career. So it's recorded, so it will be uploaded into the Facebook group later. So you can catch up on the introductory side.
Thank you. Sorry, I was in a work call that I overran horrendously. So
no worries. So Kim, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just to what to what Lou was saying, I agree with you that the how is more important than the what you deliver. But I think trust is a term that means different things to different people. So I like the way you've made it you've expanded it, Tony, with the formula. But if I remember back years and years ago, I was on a leadership team for a Canadian company, and we had a huge issue amongst the leadership team, and trust was at the heart of it. There was no trust between the majority of us. And we had a workshop, and I'll never, ever forget this. It was fascinating. There were 6 of us, and we were split into 2 teams. And the facilitator didn't know the dynamics in the room at all. He just split us into 3 teams. And as it turned out, the 3 on my side, we talked about what trust meant to us. And we were all aligned. It was around, if I share something with you, Neil, and I share in confidence, I trust that you're going to keep it in confidence. And if you're giving me feedback, you're giving me feedback that's in my best interest, not in your best interest. So it was that kind of that intangible stuff that was important to us. All 3 of us were aligned. You go to the other 3, and this was our problem, because trust to them was, you do what you say when you're going to do it. And I'm like, yeah, that's your job. That's not trust for me. There's an element of that. But it was so clear that if trust to us is one thing and that's what was important, and to them it was something different, no wonder we were in the mess that we were in, because we couldn't meet in the middle on that. So I just think that the whole thing on trust, I'm a big believer in talking about it and making sure I understand what people mean and what's important to them, so that we can align on how that's what it means and how we work together.
That's engaged listening, Kim, which is a really difficult skill. Sometimes, I know I'm guilty of it, I'm thinking about my answer before they finish talking, and you've really got to stop yourself, and because you can't be answering them in their best interest if you've not really engaged and listened to what their problem is. And I've I do find myself having to consciously do that, and that's trust as well, because if someone's not listening to you, you can't really be in their best interest. And as you said, Tony, there, it's, you're fully engaged, you turn up and you're engaged, and that's not thinking about yourself and what you're going to say and how you're going to look really clever. It's, it's just being open, honest, trustworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Dara.
Just coming back to Kim's point, I think that there's also something about knowing when that trust is so broken that whatever you do, you are not going to be able to repair it, because it may run much, much deeper than the dynamics of that group. It may be that certain individuals have certain individual issues with trust, and it's knowing when to call it out, not necessarily in the group, but if the behavior is so bad, calling it out if you're running the group, or having that one-to-one with the individual to say, call it out as it is. There are some serious issues of trust. I'm not sure they're ever going to be repaired. So this is damaging what we're trying to do. If you want to be part of it, we want you to be part of it. But there's some stuff there that is actually sabotaging everything. And it's being brave enough to address that for the greater good.
Yeah, and Dara, on that, I absolutely. And there were some spin-off conversations that came from that. But I think it's also just being forewarned is like being forearmed. So knowing what we were dealing with, at least we understood what the bloody disconnect was about. Yes. And it wasn't that anyone was unintentionally trying to be divisive, but our value, like the way we looked at things was. So for me, half of it was just understanding why they felt the way they did, because we all said the word trust, but it just meant something totally different.
Yeah. But I think that's not uncommon, isn't it? We all have our interpretation of different things, and one of the key lessons I learned very early on in my career was, almost when you work in any meeting where you've got some disagreement, is almost getting sort of some consistent understanding of what it is that we're trying to achieve here, and what the various sort of positions are really, and trying to get it out on the table. So, because until you really identify those differences, you can never start to overcome them, can you?
I think there's also another part to this, and that is what happens if trust has been broken in some way. How do we, anyone, get that trust back, or can some people never forgive and forget? It's a very delicate subject.
No, absolutely, yeah, and we started earlier on talking about the fact that it takes some time to build trust, but it can be lost very, very quickly. And as you say, once it's lost, to come back, and let's assume that people can give people a second chance, then I would argue that actually you've got to carry on doing what the trust formula, what we shared earlier. So just for Dawn's benefit, let me just share my screen again. So can you see that? That's so we're talking here about the trust being a sort of formula around sort of building credibility, really getting to be seen to understand the issue, understand the challenge, the pain points, putting out stuff that is value added and starts, helps the individual to overcome whatever the challenges they've got. Reliability, so be there and be present, and if you commit to doing something, get it done, and give the person the assurance that actually you're going to be there for them. Intimacy, really always focus upon them, be there, make sure that you've got their best interest in heart, and then the key element of what can break trust very, very quickly or diminish that trust factor that you've built up with the other three is this self-orientation. If you are always focused upon what it means to me as opposed to what it means to you, then you start to diminish all the benefits that you've built up with the top three. So I think you're right. If trust is broken down, my approach would always be, well, let's go back to the start and start trying to build it up again, and start building up and putting these different elements back into that trust bank and build the deposits up again.
Absolutely. And I think those points that Kim made earlier on about her team previously, those points that the other team had got, they are elements of trust. They just probably needed to be built upon. The reliability and the honesty about that it needed to be builded upon.
And I would think on anything, when you start to when trust is broken down, it's really starting to understand and have that open conversation about what it was that's started to break that trust down. So whether it's a group session to really understand the issues and the challenges and the miscommunications, or if it's a one-to-one session, what have I done? Let's get it out on the table and start talking about it. And sometimes it's just it's misunderstanding, it's miscommunication, isn't it? And I remember having a situation with a really good friend of mine, and years ago, and I said something in the heat of the moment that he interpreted completely in probably the most extreme comparison to what I was meaning it to say, but his interpretation, his reality is reality, and we didn't speak for 12-18 months as a result of that. And it took us ages to start building up that trust to get to a stage where we could start going out and having a chat and just getting friendly again. And it's probably still not where it was pre that one comment. And it's so easy to lose it.
And interestingly, as humans, it depending on our personalities, or actually not just our personalities, but how far we've been pushed and to what extent, because sometimes it's a bit like the analogy of if you were sitting in a room and the people kept walking in but didn't close the door after them, and you were getting cold, and it only takes that last one to, at one point, there are 5 people before you that hasn't closed the door you've not reacted to, and then the last one you do. So sometimes a reaction is not just about that sole action. It's a reaction to an event or a chain of events, and it's being able to understand what that is, and then how we are to go back and discuss, apologize, whatever it takes to get that relationship back working again. But ultimately, you need to understand why there was that disconnect in the first place.
Absolutely. And I suspect to some extent the formula that I outlined earlier is absolutely relevant to personal relationships. I suppose when I was putting it together, it was more focused upon winning business and maintaining business. So from a business development perspective, and building that credibility with clients and putting information out there and stuff like that. perhaps that credibility aspect in a personal state, it's other things, isn't it? It's it's really understanding how you build that credibility, reinforce that credibility within personal relationships. But yeah, I was looking at it from a much more of a sort of business development and sales element, and certainly in professional services, it's so important. Because
the same could still be said, Tony, about in a professional work relationship, where it might be one very, very small thing that breaks the camel's back. Quite often it's not the big thing, and people are left thinking, well, what's happened to break the working relationship down?
Yeah.
And actually, it can quite often be an accumulation of small things that could trigger that. So whether it's in outside work life or not. Thank you. Cup of tea coming.
Oh, very nice. No, you're absolutely right, Don. Absolutely right. Luke, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was being a good girl and using the hand up for a change. So I was also thinking, and as you were going through it, I work with a lot of contact centers and customer service in a lot of what I do. And a lot of this is also about how can you train other people to build trust as well? Because if you think about it in terms of a customer service environment, you can use that very similar formula. Okay, the words underneath will be slightly different, but the reality is, how do you build trust very quickly with a new client, if it was us and from a consultancy perspective, but also somebody who's answering the phone in a contact center environment, to build trust that yes, they are going to fix that person's problem, or that in essence they're going to build rapport quickly so that that person trusts that yes, they do know what the hell they're talking about, and that in essence the trust is there that they can have a decent relationship ongoing, that they'll do business with you again. So it's the same as true in whatever environment you're having. It works.
That's an interesting point though, Luke, because I just recently I made a pretty sizable purchase from Curry's, and I was buying a desktop. My husband was not helping me with this, so I had to make this decision on my own, which was quite scary. And I called Curry's, and I think in that type of an environment, getting that rapport quickly leads me to the trust quickly.
Correct. That's right.
So with him, the guy who came on the phone, and if any of you have not used Curry's, you got to try it. Go to buy something, and then they have this chat facility, but the chat facility brings up a real live person. It's so exciting. And this guy, when he came on, he wasn't, and maybe he should have been working from a script, but it was clear he wasn't. And it was so nice just to have a person talking to me right off the bat, knowing that it wasn't a scripted thing. I had trust in him that he was going to help me. And at the end of the day, he ended up, I wasn't as far off with my thinking as I thought, but he sold me a different product than what I wanted, same price, but more functionality. He's like, if I was you, I wouldn't do that, because even if you don't need this, you're getting a lot more power for your money. And I'm like, wow, you are the best person that I've ever spoken to. But the rapport in that case was so immediate with him. And that got me I would have done anything he wanted me to do in that 10 minutes I was with him.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And what Dawn was saying, because actually if he'd been not very good and actually he didn't build that rapport with you, then the reality is you never would have taken that path that you would have done.
Nope.
It's so important, isn't it? I had a similar experience a few weeks ago. I was buying a car, and second-hand car, and I went into the dealership, and this guy was just he didn't come across as a salesperson. He just came across as a regular guy who was just helping me to think about what I was looking for and whether this vehicle was the right vehicle. I remember coming away and saying to my wife, well, I don't feel like I've been sold to at all. And it's probably the first experience of buying a car that I've had that experience, because it's usually, it's all about that self-orientation, isn't it? It's forcing you to go down the route that they want you to go down, as opposed to looking at it, well, is it the right car for you? Is it the right PC for you? Is it got the right functionality, etc., etc.? It's so easy to turn it around, but so many people get it wrong.
Yeah.
And as a result, you're probably likely to go back to that same garage.
No, absolutely, and recommend it, which is the key, isn't it? It's what do they say? They say, you know, I can't remember what the stats are. I've not seen them for a few years, but if you have a good experience, you typically will tell 3 people about it, and if you have a bad experience, you'll typically tell about 20 people about it. So you know that it's so important to do the things that we've just been talking about, because, well, I've just told 6 people about it, but I haven't told you the brand, the company name or anything like that. So it's really haven't had that benefit. But Neil, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, one, I was just going to reiterate what Kim said, because we went to Curry's and we were buying a TV, and the guy said, well, I wouldn't actually buy it now. I'd wait for 6 months because there's some new technology, which is really expensive now. In about 6 months, it will be just right. And in 6 months, we went back to Curry's. So it was, yeah, absolutely. And the guy wasn't selling, he was doing it in our best interest. But that wasn't what I was going to mention. It was a question really about, they say that if you deliver all the time, you build up a lot of trust. But if you fail to deliver, but then put it right, you build up more trust. And how does that work? You've got to get over that, oh, well, they didn't deliver, so the trust is gone. But then that second chance to put it right builds a huge amount of trust, more so than if you never got anything wrong, which is a strange one.
No, absolutely. It is, isn't it? I think, again, you become much more of an advocate of an organisation where you've experienced some difficulties and they've overcome them. But isn't that really what we're just saying? That organisation or that individual has acknowledged that they've got something wrong. That by acknowledging that they've got something wrong, it's I'm orientated upon what's right for you as the customer or you as the client, and I'm committing to putting it right for you. So it does follow that trust formula as well. It's acknowledging that you've done it, and by acknowledging, you're putting yourself in the shoes of the customer and the shoes of the.
And not thinking of self, trying to hide something. You are definitely thinking. It does. It works completely.
Someone mentioned something earlier, and it triggered a thought in my mind. But organisations get this wrong a lot in marketing. So DFS, I haven't seen them on TV recently, but they used to be almost like every week they were saying the new sale, it's ending on Sunday. And it's like everybody knew that actually there'd be a new sale ending starting on Tuesday. So as far as I was concerned, it's like why would I ever take time out to go in? They want to encourage you to go into the showroom to buy today to get benefit from the sale, when you know full well that next week there'll be another sale. And so that as far as I was concerned, that was all about focused upon them to try to get you into buy the sofa now rather than buy the sofa in the future. Anyway,
the psychology is true. We all have an inbuilt fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So that is why some of those retailers did pitch like that. But of course, they then lost the trust of many because we saw through that pitch, so to speak, or the advertising, and we knew that the sale would be extended for another week, or it's been extended for another month. Oh, they did that last year, so I don't trust them. Right, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just noticed the time. Actually, we've come to the end of the session. Any final comments or questions before we close up?
I'll just say that for me, the whole trust relationship, I've always been so passionate about developing strong relationships, because for me, looking at it selfishly, when I do cock up, it's never as big of a deal because I've got that relationship, I've got the trust, and I know I get off a lot easier. Not that I use that, but there is a benefit to having those relationships. If you do make a mistake, it's not as big of a deal because, to your point, Tony, you're not taking as many withdrawals out as long as you manage that.
Totally agree. perfect way to end it, Kim. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, then.
Bye.
Speak to you
Bye,
soon.
Don.
Bye-bye.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye. Bye.
Bye.